I'm Jack. I'm going to do Luke 9. Jesus now called the 12 and gave them authority and power to deal with the demons and cure diseases. He commissioned them to preach the news of God's kingdom and heal the sick. He says, don't load yourself up with equipment. Keep it simple. You are the equipment. And no luxury inns. Get a modest place and be content there until you leave. If you're not welcome, leave town. Commissioned, they left. They traveled from town to town, telling the latest news of God, the message, and curing the people everywhere they went. Herod the ruler heard of these goings on and did not know what to think. There were people saying John had come back from the dead, others that Elijah had appeared, still others had some prophets of long ago had shown up. Herod said, but I killed John, took off his head. So who is this that I keep hearing about? Curious, he looked up for a chance to see him in action. The apostles returned and reported on what they had done. Jesus took them away off by themselves and near the town of Bethsaida. But the crowds got wind of it and followed. Jesus graciously welcomed them and talked to them about the kingdom of God. Those who needed healing, they healed. As the day declined, and the 12 said, dismiss the crowd so that we can go to the farm or villages around here and get a room for the night and a bite to eat. We're out in the middle of nowhere. So feed them, Jesus said. They said, we could not scrape up more than 5 loaves of bread and a couple fish. Unless, of course, you want us to go to town ourselves and buy the food for everyone. There were about 5,000 people in the crowd. But he went ahead and directed his disciples, set them down in groups of 50. They did what he said and soon got everyone seated. He took 5 loaves and 2 fish, lifted his face to heaven in prayer, blessed, broke, and gave the bread and fish to the disciples to hand out to the crowd. After the people had all eaten their fill, 12 baskets and leftovers were gathered up. One time when Jesus was off praying by himself, his disciples nearby, he asked them, what are the crowds saying about me, about who I am? They said John the Baptizer, others said Elijah, still others say the one of the prophets from long ago has come back. He then asked, and you, what do you say about me? Who am I? Peter answered, the Messiah of God. Jesus had warned them to keep quiet. They were to tell no one what Peter had said. He went on, it is necessary that the Son of Man proceed to an ordeal of suffering, be tried and found guilty by the religious leaders, high priests, and religious scholars, be killed, and on the 3rd day be raised up alive. Then he told them that what they would expect for themselves. Anyone who intends to come with me has to be led by me. You're not the one in charge. Don't run suffering, embrace it. Follow me and I'll show you how. Self-help is no help at all. Self-sacrifice is the way, my way, to find yourself, your true self. What good would it do to get everything you want and lose it, the real you? If any of you is embarrassed with me and the way I am leading you, know that the Son of Man will be far more embarrassed with you when he arrives in all his splendor in the company of the Father and the holy angels. This isn't you realize a pie in the sky attitude. Some of you have been taken their stand right here, are going to be see it happen. See with your own eyes the kingdom of God. After 8 days of saying this, he climbed a mountain to pray, taking Peter, James, and John along. While he was in prayer, an appearance of his face changed, and his clothes became blinding white. At once 2 men were talking with him. They turned around to see that Moses and Elijah, and what glorious appearance they made. They talked over his exodus, the one Jesus was about to complete in Jerusalem. Meanwhile, Peter and those with him were slumped over to sleep. When they came to, rubbing their eyes, they saw Jesus in his glory and the 2 men standing with him. When Jesus and Elijah had left, Peter said to Jesus, "Master, it is a great moment. Let's build 3 memorials, one for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah." He blurted this out without thinking. While he was babbling on like this, a radiant cloud enveloped them. As they found themselves buried in the cloud, they became deeply aware of God. Then there was a voice out of the cloud, "This is my son, my chosen. Listen to him." And the sound of the voice died away. They saw Jesus there alone. They were speechless, and they continued speechless, said not a thing to anyone during those days of what they had seen. When they came down off the mountain the next day, a big crowd was there to meet them. A man called out of the crowd, "Please, please, teacher, take my son. He is my only child. Often a spirit seizes him. Suddenly he screamed, thrown into convulsions, his mouth foaming, and then it beats him black and blue before it leaves. I asked your disciples to deliver him, but they could not." Jesus said, "What a generation, no sense of God, not focused on your lives. How many times do I have to go over these things? How much longer do I have to put up with this? Bring your son here." While he was coming, the demon slammed him to the ground and threw him into convulsions. Yet Jesus stepped in, ordered the vile spirit gone, healed the boy, and handed him back to his father. They all shook their heads in wonder, astonished of God's greatness, God's majestic greatness. While they continued to stand around, exclaiming over all the things he was doing, Jesus said to his disciples, "Treasure and ponder these things." Next words. The Son of Man is about to be betrayed into human hands. They did not get what he was saying. It was like he was speaking a foreign language and could not make heads or tails of it. But they were embarrassed to ask him what it meant. They started arguing over which of them would be the most famous. While Jesus realized how much this mattered to them, he brought a child to his side. "Whoever accepts the child as if a child were me, accepts me," he said. "And whoever accepts me, accepts the one who sent me. You become great by accepting and not asserting. Your spirit, not your size, makes the difference." John spoke up, "Master, we saw a man using your name, expel demons, and stop him because he wasn't one of our group." Jesus said, "Don't stop him. If he is not an enemy, he is an ally." When it came close to the time for his ascension, he gathered up his courage and steeled himself into the journey to Jerusalem. He sent messengers ahead. They came to a Samaritan village to make arrangements for his hospitality. But when the Samaritans learned that his descension was Jerusalem, they refused hospitality. When the disciples James and John heard of this, they said, "Master, do you want us to call down a bolt of lightning out of the sky and incinerate them?" Jesus turned on them, "Of course not," and they traveled on to the next village. On the road, someone asked him if they could go along. "I'll go along with you wherever," he said. Jesus was curt. "Are you ready to rough it? Were you not staying in the best inns you know?" Jesus said to another, "Follow me." He said, certainly, but first excuse me for a couple of days. Please, I have to make arrangements for my father's funeral. Jesus refused. First things first, your business is life, not death. A life is urgent. Announce God's kingdom. Another one said, I am ready to follow you, Master, but first excuse me while I get things straightened out at my home. Jesus said, no procrastination, no backward looking. You can put God's kingdom off till tomorrow. Seize the day. That's all. Thanks.